I think we're ready. We're going to go for it anyway. So I want to thank you all for coming today. I want to thank the press for covering today's. Hopefully, this is the first and last press conference of the winter. We'll see. I also want to recognize we have some leaders from the city here and from the state. I'll start with the state. I want to thank Lynn Tordo and Rose Evans from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and also the Intergovernment Agency on Homelessness. So thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank Chris Osgood, who is Chief of Streets in the City of Boston, Renee Fielding, who's the Chief of the Emergency Management in the City of Boston, Chief Jerome Smith, Chief of Engagement in the City of Boston, Chief Sheila Dillon of Housing. I also want to thank Superintendent Tommy Chang from the Boston School Department. Fire Commissioner Joe Finn is here. Buddy Christopher from Special Services is here. Mike Broll from Public Works is here. And as you notice, I want to begin by thanking all of the public work crews that are here today, because I stand in front of here and talk about what's happening, but the actual work that happens in the street when we have a storm happens by all these men and women here. So I want to thank you all for your great work in the City of Boston. If I missed anybody behind me, I'll get them in a little bit. We've had some unseasonably warm temperatures over the past few weeks, but we don't want to be fooled by that, because we know that winter is certainly coming around the corner. And I think that the winter of 2015 might be behind us, but certainly it's no distant memory. A lot of us remember what happened that year. So last year when I saw the first snowfall, I cringed a bit, because I thought about that year, and this year I'm going to feel the same way. And I'm just talking today a little bit about where we are in the city and how we're going to prepare for the winter. We've increased the salt that we have on hand from last year from 40,000 tons to 44,000 tons. We have over 140 pieces of Public Works equipment that's staffed by Public Works, and it's ice and snow removal. We have the capacity to add another 700 pieces of equipment through secured contractors. We have 2 new truck-mounted snow blowers, which were put in good use in Baltimore last winter, and I'm looking forward to never use them here in the City of Boston. We had a couple of small snow events already this year. It's very small, but we're already back in the swing of things here. Chief Osgood's going to talk a little bit about more preparation for this year's winter, but despite our best efforts, severe winter can bring all kinds of emergency situations. We encourage all Bostonians and residents to sign up for the emergency notification to our multilingual auto alert system. You can do that by simply contacting the cityofboston.com webpage, and Chris Osgood can talk a little more about that. Commissioner Fielding is going to talk about how we are preparing safety protocol in case we get into an emergency mode. On the topic of snow days, we're lucky that we only had 3 snow days last school year. The Boston Public Schools are going to continue to communicate with parents about school closures with other alerts. Their robocall system is translated now into 7 different languages to accommodate more families, and we will, like we did last year, even though we got criticized for one of the snowstorms, we try to notify parents as early as possible if there's going to be a cancellation in school, so that parents can make accommodations for childcare. One time in 3 years we did that, and we didn't have much snow the next day. I'm just going to be clear on this. I'm always going to err on the side of safety and caution with our kids. But like other years, our BCYF centers will be open. Boston Public School parents to Boston Public School parents with children 7 years or older. This is a great resource for our family. It's warm and a safe place for children to stay while parents go to work. On regular snow days, all 28 of our centers will be open from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're committed to consistently running the city services even throughout the snowstorms. Unless there's a special announcement, we're going to continue to have regularly scheduled city events. Our 311 hotline, Niall Murphy, the director of that line, is here with us today, is adding extra staff so that every call is answered in a timely fashion. Much of those additional calls, staff that goes up there, they're volunteers who work for the City of Boston. We've asked the different departments in the city if they could come up with a list of people. So oftentimes when people call during a snow emergency, the folks that are on that line are volunteering their time, and I want to thank them for that. We can also help you with things like removing snow and ice, finding alternative parking, learning about school closures. So we want you to call with different situations. Also, your favorite question, generally from the press, is space savers. So the rule for this year in the City of Boston, the 48-hour space saver rule will continue to be in effect all across the city. This excludes the South End, where they're extending their No Space Saver pilot program. So the South End is expanding that No Space Saver pilot program. Other places in the city of Boston is a 48-hour rule. Chief Jerome Smith will talk more about space savers and other neighborhood issues that we're looking out for. During this time of year, we also must look out for our most vulnerable residents, especially our seniors. Through the Senior Save program, the Boston Home Center will help seniors replace failing or insufficient heating systems before the winter begins. The one thing I would like to just ask the press if you could get this information out. So through the Senior Save program in the Boston Home Center, we have a program that will help seniors that have failing or insufficient heating systems in their home. So if they could contact the city, we can work on them on replacing their boilers where they need it. This also helps lower energy bills and lowers the risks of heating emergencies in the city. We also know that the winter is an especially tough time for our homeless population and the less fortunate. We are working in many ways to reduce chronic homelessness between the city and the state. We also have a state-of-the-art new shelter in Southampton Street, which hosts about 400 guests. We have a system in place to make sure that all the homeless veterans and people are on a path to housing. We've secured more funding this year to expand triage like places like Pine Street Inn, Woods Mullen, and Southampton Street. And we're working to extend our family shelter and permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. Sheila Dillon's going to talk more about this effort, but historically, individual homelessness, the city of Boston's been working on, family homelessness, the state's been working on, but in a time of crisis or a bad storm, we work collaboratively together. So if you call 311, we will hook you into the state. If you call the state, they will hook you into the city. We're also asking everyone's help looking out for homeless population for those less fortunate as we go on. You don't need a snowstorm for that. If it's a cold night and you see somebody out there, call 311, report the address if you can, and we will work to make sure we get services out to that person. We also want to make sure people check on their neighbors to make sure that during the cold weather that they're okay, particularly the people that are shut in or seniors. And also when it snows, we ask you to help shovel their sidewalk, shovel crosswalks and fire hydrants in the city of Boston. Bostonians are tough and resilient, and together we're going to get through any type of weather that might come. So I want to thank you for being here today. I'll come back for some questions in a few minutes, but now I'd like to introduce Chris Osgood, who will take over the next portion of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Mayor. For the city, as the mayor said, preparing for winter, responding to storms is absolutely a team event. It's why so many folks are here from so many different departments in both the city and the state. Our public works efforts are led by Mike Brohl. When the snow begins to fall or when freezing rain comes, as we saw on early Monday morning of this week, our entire public works team springs into action. The salt, the equipment, and most importantly, the personnel are really key to the response. As you see here, we've got 17,000 tons of salt at Frontage Road. About another 27,000 tons are in our district yards from East Boston to West Roxbury. Makes it accessible to all of our crews during the course of a storm throughout all of our neighborhoods. Our Central Fleet Division has been working incredibly hard under the leadership of Bill Coughlin to make sure that over 140 pieces of equipment are ready to be able to salt streets and plow our roads when the snow comes. You see some of those pieces of equipment behind us, and gladly show you some of those up close afterwards if you guys are interested. The newest piece of equipment that we have that we'll be trying out this year is a brine truck. What the brine truck does, it applies a small layer of saline solution, salt solution to our roads before the snow comes, so that snow melts instead of freezes to ice. We'll be trying that out in a variety of different places in the city, including potentially in some of our new protected bike lanes. The most important sort of work that happens, though, are the crews that go out there and do the pre-treating and do the plowing. Folks like Jamie Clemente, Gilbert Costin, Hector Mejias, the team in our Main Routes 1, and the entire 200-plus personnel of Public Works that really goes out and makes sure that our streets are safe for everybody. And as we're doing that, our Code Enforcement Division, led by Steve Tankel, and sergeants like John Blackmore are out there making sure that all of our sidewalks are safe and that we're not seeing snow from private property being thrown back into the public right-of-way. Complementing all the great work of the Public Works Department is an incredibly dedicated team for the Boston Transportation Department, led by Commissioner Gina Fiandaca. Her team, the parking enforcement officers under the leadership of Kevin Donahue, our traffic management center, our operations group, they're the ones that are really in charge of making sure that our plows can actually get to the curb and that our most difficult intersections, our bottleneck intersections, are free and clear of traffic. Perhaps the most important part of our team, though, really is the public at large, and we really do encourage the public to call through and wonder if there are ways in which we can be of greater help. We need the public to make sure that the sidewalk in front of their house is safely shoveled within 3 hours after the end of a snowstorm, and that any neighbor that needs the same service is given a hand. We encourage all folks to be able to park their cars short of the corners to help our plow trucks, and obviously follow all parking rules and regulations when snow emergencies are in effect, which means don't park on our main arterials. And during the course of a snowstorm, we want to make sure that people are using public transportation if possible rather than choosing to drive. So all together, our public works team, our transportation team, the folks here, are all part of a great team effort. Looking forward to another successful winter in the city of Boston. I'm going to turn it over to another core member of the team, Renee Fielding, who's our Director of Emergency Management.
Good afternoon, everyone. So before severe weather starts, the Office of Emergency Management is encouraging residents to sign up for emergency notifications through Alert Boston. Alert Boston will provide real-time warnings on weather conditions and updates on the parking bans via phone, text message, or email. Recognizing the diverse nature of Boston's population, the new Alert Boston system allows residents to sign up and receive notifications in 4 different languages: English, Spanish, French, and Chinese. Like any emergency, we're also asking residents to build a kit complete with food, water, flashlights, batteries, a radio, and blankets. Make sure you have a family communication plan and it's practiced frequently. And always check on your neighbors, especially the elderly and those with access and functional needs. If severe weather arrives, the Office of Emergency Management is fully prepared to activate our Emergency Operations Center. The EOC brings together multiple city, nonprofit, and state agencies who work in unison to coordinate resources and assist in response and recovery efforts. We look forward to partnering with our fellow city agencies to ensure a safe winter for all residents and visitors to Boston. Speaking next is Chief of Housing, Sheila Dillon.
Thank you, Renee. The city, as the mayor said, is working very closely with many city departments and our team at the state to make sure the homeless are safe this winter. The city continues to monitor the number of adults using our emergency shelter system. Our normal capacity is about 1,480, and as we head into winter, we know that we need more than this. So we are bringing additional capacity on at our 2 main shelters, Southampton and Pine Street, and some additional capacity downtown at the Boston Rescue Mission. We're monitoring the shelters very closely because we only want to bring on what we need. And so far, even with the cold weather, our numbers are reasonable, and we've been able to manage with what we have. I think that's in part, the mayor mentioned it, we've been housing a lot of the homeless over the summer and into the fall, so our numbers started going into the winter are lower than they have been. I also want to note that the state has brought on additional shelter outside of Boston, which helps Boston. It relieves our pressure, and it keeps people closer to their support system. So I really want to thank the state for doing that this year. During the day, Southampton, the shelter at Southampton will be open, as it always is, and Pine Street will be open on very cold days, very snowy days. Pine Street will continue to run its outreach vans, and I want to recognize Jim Green from the Department of Neighborhood Development, who will be overseeing the street effort. But as the vans look for the homeless, we do, as the mayor mentioned, need you to also be checking on our citizens, calling 911 when you see, someone that is really in distress, or 311 when you have general concern and you want a city person to go out and make sure things are safe. Shifting gears a little bit, I just want to reinforce what the mayor said. Seniors should be calling for new furnaces now if they need them. But I also want to make the public aware that the Department of Neighborhood Development can provide repair resources and programs if you find yourself with some repairs needed for the winter or repairs needed after a storm. We can help with frozen pipes, heating systems that are not working, roof repair, etc., clogged gutters, those types of things. So once again, dial 311, and we have very, very good, competent programs, and we can get to you very, very quickly. With that, I want to hand this over to Jerome Smith, our Chief of Civic Engagement, and he's going to talk more about snow savers and other things. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sheila. You heard a lot about Boston 311. That is for the residents. That's going to be your main primary point of contact for all your information that you need, both on the app that you can download, but also just by dialing 311 itself. And the other important site that we all want the residents to go to is boston.gov/snow. That's where you can get the Alert Boston and all the alerts about the pending snowstorms, parking situations, when the emergency snow bans come into effect, where you can find garages to take your cars off the streets. So we think that those three avenues for residents are very important, that they take full advantage. We have trained over 150 city employees that will be activated to attend Boston 301 phone line should you be calling in, so that way everybody can get their call in. And as you put your call in, Office of Neighborhood Services will also be going out with our partners at Public Works to kind of do snow patrols to come to sort of more of the sensitive areas to see where the bottlenecks are, and they're able to put some eyes on some of the reports that we call for residents. And so we just feel it's very important for the residents who know their neighborhoods best to call 311 and kind of direct and guide us in the middle of a snow event. To reiterate what the mayor said about space savers, space savers are only in effect when the city declares a snow emergency. So if it's just a dusting, we do not put space savers out. It has to be a snow emergency. And they're only allowed to be put out for 48 hours after the end of the snow emergency, except in the neighborhood of the South End, where the residents there have decided that they are banning the use of space savers in the winter. So it's 48 hours after a declared snow emergency. Also, again, the residents know their neighbors best. If you have an elderly neighbor or a person with disability that you're aware of on your street or in your neighborhood, we ask that you go out, check on them, see if they need assistance in shoveling out their home. Just remember that it may be difficult for them to get out of their home, and we want to help them, particularly our seniors, with the feeling of isolation, not being able to get their medicine, get food, or just getting out of their home. And so we'd like for you to just go out, meet your neighbors, and help out where you can.
Thanks, Jerome. Before I take any questions, I just wanted to introduce Chief Willie Gross from the Boston Police Department is with us today. Chief Will Morales from the Boston Center of Youth and Families. Chief Austin Blackman from the Environmental Department is with us again today. Thank you, all of you, for being here. The last thing I have for you is that the budget for this year's snow in the fiscal year, we put in $22.5 million in the budget. In 2015, we spent $38.5 totally. So what we do is we do a 5-year average. Last year, I don't believe we spent, last winter we didn't spend the whole budget, but this year we have 22.5 in there, so preparing for whatever happens. So with that, any questions on the snow? Nothing, huh? Sure don't ask you about space savers? All right, listen, thank you very much. And again, to all the people behind us, but particularly all of the staff here at Public Works and Transportation, thanks for the great work you do every single day of the year. Appreciate it. Thank you.